Hi everyone! I hope you're all having a great week. I'm feeling a little anxious today, and that usually happens when I have a lot on the go and I need a little bit of time, I guess, to recenter myself. When that happens, I like to pull out my cards and pull a card for myself to see what kind of guidance I can get. The guidance doesn't come necessarily from the card itself. It's really the messages that are inside of me. And what the cards ultimately do for me is they offer me a prompt to check in with myself and my intuition. So today I pulled out this deck because, like I said, I was feeling anxious and I felt like I needed to recenter myself and get myself grounded again. And I asked my cards, or myself, I guess, if that's how I look at it. When I pull cards, I'm really asking my own inner guidance what it is I need. And the card I pulled from this deck, which I just got as a birthday gift from my mom, and I really, really love it, is so appropriate for what's going on right now. The card is called Steady On, and it has this beautiful imagery of a tortoise just moving slowly through the world, but trusting in its own inner guidance. And that right now is exactly the message I need. Even though I'm feeling anxious because I have a lot on the go and I feel like I need to go, go, go. Inside of me, I know if I just keep moving, regardless of how slowly I'm moving, just as long as I'm moving forward, I'm always on the right path. So for this week's project, I'm gonna just paint very slowly, and I'm gonna create an intuitive painting, trusting my own inner guidance. Even though most of my paintings usually end up having some pretty bright colors, I generally like to start by using a more neutral color to start creating my background. So the first color I put down is Titan Buff, and now I'm going to move on to adding some Periwinkle and then a light lilac color. As I've mentioned on a number of occasions, I don't usually have a set plan for my paintings, but I do typically have an idea of the colors I'm going to use. And in this case, I sort of let my intuition really guide me here, as I often do. And I had not planned to use this turquoise, but I saw it in my palette and I thought it would look really nice against that lilac. So I decided to use it. And not only is it a good match for that lilac, but it's also helping me use some paint that was just left over on my palette, because I really don't like wasting paint.
These pale colors look really nice together, but I want more contrast in my painting, so I'm adding some less diluted turquoise. And I'm just moving my brush along my paper in a very intuitive way, trying to create different shapes. They're not necessarily going to stay there until the very end, but it will help me along the way, as when these shapes dry, some new shapes will form because the water on the paper will continue to move, and as things are drying, things will shift and change. And that helps me in my intuitive creative process. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed my little jar of fine-grained salt, and I decided I'm going to start adding some of it to the bottom part of my painting, as this will help to create some interesting textures that may or may not remain until the very end of the painting. I'm not sure yet. I just sort of let my intuition guide me, and in this case, I feel like that will add some interest to the painting. After adding salt to the paint and the paper, it's always important to let it dry so that you can then scrape off the salt before adding more paint. And I did that off camera, so you didn't really have a chance to see me do that, but I just rubbed it off with my fingers. I really like the light colors that are in the background, but as usual, I really feel called to add some more bright colors to my painting. Nickel Azo Yellow, the color I'm using right now, is probably one of my favorite vibrant colors. It has a tendency to dry to be just as vibrant as it is when you first apply it, and I think that's probably one of the reasons I tend to use it a lot. Quinacridone Deep Gold is another color that I often use in my paintings, and I find that Nickel Azo Yellow and Quinacridone Deep Gold work very well together. So that's one of the reasons I'm using it with the Nickel Azo Yellow. The sun won't stay exactly the way it is right now. This is just me sort of building up a base of colors, and I'm going to be doing a whole lot more to it as we go along, or as I go along, I should say. As much as my intuition was telling me to add that Nickel Azo Yellow, I added it, and then I added the Quinacridone Deep Gold, and after doing so, my gut was like, I don't know about this. But I'm choosing to trust that there's a reason I wanted to do this in the first place, and I also am reminding myself that in the painting process, the painting is not going to look exactly the same as it looks now when I'm done. So I have to keep pushing forward. I want to keep pushing forward to see where I can take this piece. And so I'm trusting myself that I know how to turn this around, because at the moment I'm looking at it and it's not really speaking to me all that much. It kind of, I don't know, it just it really isn't doing it for me, I guess. Is how I should say it. But that's okay. As the process continues on, I'm sure it'll slowly but surely come together. So the yellow right at the center of the painting was a little bit much, and it needed to be balanced. And so I decided to add a little bit more of that Nickel Azo yellow to what I guess I'll call my horizon line. And I'm blending it down, and as I'm blending it down, it's slowly turning the turquoise that's on the paper into a bit of a greenish color. And I'm actually liking that balance of colors a little bit more. And speaking of balance, adding some blue to the very top part of my painting will also help to create balance with the bottom of the painting that is more in the blue tones. Always in an effort to continue working on balance, I've decided to freehand some circles below the sun. And I'm not making them perfect. My sun isn't perfect, and actually, that's exactly how I like it. So, in some sense, I guess for me, it makes it perfect. Um, Remember, I've mentioned before that perfection is something that's very hard to define because we all look at it so differently and we all have our own idea of what perfection is. So, for me, imperfection feels right. I could have left my circles free floating, but I decided that I was going to join them by creating some lines and then coloring in the lines to again work on developing a little bit more contrast in my painting, but also creating some unity in the painting. After creating some contrast on the bottom portion of my painting, I decided that it was also a good idea to do the same on the top part of my painting, again, in order to balance things out. If you've watched any number of my videos, you'll surely have noticed that I tend to keep things as simple as possible by creating details that are very easy to create, such as these vertical lines. Stippling is another easy, repetitive, and very meditative element that I like to use in my paintings. And it's a great way for me to create some more contrast in a very simple way. When I create a certain element in a portion of my painting, I like to also repeat that element in other parts of my painting. So in this case, I've decided to go around the contour of my abstract sun, and I'm adding some more stippling. I've pulled out my favorite iridescent gold paint called Star Gold, and I'm going to work on creating some more contrast and visual interest in my painting. I first started off by creating this little ring inside the sun, and at some point you'll see that I'll change it because after sitting with it for a little bit, it just wasn't really speaking to me. Before I make that change, however, I've pulled out my micro mini brush and I'm adding a little bit more of that gold just on top of my horizon line because again, it's important to repeat different elements but also different colors in a painting, and that helps to create more balance. And also, I just really love that gold. So I decided to color in the inside of that ring that was on the interior surface of the sun. And now I'm adding a little bit more gold in the bottom portion of the painting because it will help to balance out the painting, but also it will help to warm up that section of the painting on the bottom that's a little bit cooler. Adding that gold to the center of the sun and closing it in a little bit more, making the ring around the gold a little bit narrower feels better. And as I'm adding it, I'm getting that yes, that yes that I always look for when I'm painting intuitively. So my gut is saying yes, this is the right thing to do, and I, just looking at it, really feel good about having done this. There are a fair amount of mid values in my painting, so I want to work on creating some more value contrast by adding some more lights. My white pen wasn't working quite as well as I wish it had, and it's probably getting clogged up with my watercolor paint. So I've decided to pull out some gouache and this stylist, and I'm going to be painting in some white dots inside some of my little bubbles. I really only used a little bit of that lilac color on the top portion of my painting, and I feel a need to add some more of it to the bottom portion of my painting in order to balance things out. As I was painting, my eyes kept getting drawn to this bubble in particular, and I kept thinking, I need to add more gold to that specific circle. Or I guess I want to add more gold to that specific circle. It just felt like it needed it. And as I'm adding it, I am getting another yes. I'm feeling like, yep, this is exactly what I needed to do to balance things out a little bit more. And as I was adding that gold, I thought, oh, maybe I want to pull a little bit more of it down below the circles, what I'm calling my bubbles, because they sort of feel to me like bubbles on top of water. I know bubbles wouldn't typically have black around them, but this is an abstract painting and it's my painting, and I get to, I guess, express what I'm imagining in my own way, and this is how I'm doing it. But yeah, adding a little bit more of that gold to the bottom helps to balance things out, and it helps also to warm that bottom part of the painting even more. Having added the lilac and the white keeps things cooler, and then adding that gold starts to warm things up a little bit, and it creates balance with the top portion of the painting. So when the pressures of life start to make me feel like I need to move faster, maybe the last thing I need is to move faster, and maybe what I need instead is to move a little bit slower and more intentionally so that I can really ground myself and reconnect with that part of me that just knows that I'm on the right path. And then, one intentional, slow step at a time, I get to accomplish my goal and I complete a painting like this one. How does the message of slowing down when life is asking you to move faster sit with you? It's certainly counterintuitive for me, but somehow I'm learning every single day that it actually works. Even though I thought it was all said and done, I was looking at my painting and decided to add a little bit more stippling on top of my bubbles. And now I feel like it's finally complete. Thank you for making the time to slow down with me today and joining me on this journey. I hope you have a wonderful week and happy creating!